What was all that about? Ains manages to get onto his feet. What do you remember? Damon quizzes him. Well, it was strange. Like, I was in the back seat of a carriage and Rose was driving, and then she went into Gustav, which was more like I was chasing after the carriage. Like I said, it was weird. Ains leans back against the blood-written wall, recalling his experience within the memory. Not something I've experienced before, but definitely something to make note of. Damon pulls out his leather-bound sketchbook and starts quickly scribbling while muttering to himself. So, the parents, Ains begins. Gustav and Elizabeth, yes? Damon nods while sketching the shadowy creature he inhabited. They started a cult worshipping this Strahd fella, and 8 people they sacrificed to him, Ains casually remarks. But what were those shadows? I ain't never seen anything like that. Damon scratches his stubbled chin and points his quill towards Ains as he speaks. Corrupted spirits is my best guess. They are not common, and I haven't personally encountered them until now. More importantly, though, Damon flicks his eyes to one side. They are deeply ingrained in this house, Damon whispers, suspiciously glancing at the walls, before returning to his drawing. Ains cautiously lifts himself off the wall and resumes his conversation. Well, Strahd was obviously against it. Ains waves the letter he found within the pocket of the skeleton in the library, but they still make sacrifices to him, it seems. He runs his eyes over the walls until they land on Donnie, who promptly waddles over. You alright? I heard possession takes a lot out of you. He pats Ains on the back gently. Well, gently for a turtle. So basically he punches him in the back, and Ains momentarily loses his breath. Donnie looks over to Lucian, who is taking the whole experience very well. What about you? Headache? Nausea? Lucian glares at Donnie with faded eyes. Not the first time something has taken residence within my mind, and probably not the last. He scoffs and rolls his eyes at the amateurs he has found himself in the presence of. Can we move on now? This place holds no benefit. Aru pulls herself to her feet and uncomfortably cracks her neck and knuckles. She lets out a groan of annoyance and scowls over the group. Then over to Blossom, who is running his hands along the walls again, to where he previously discovered a door. She finds footing and stomps over to Damon.
I'm leaving. Had enough of this creepy ghost house.
She huffs and starts moving toward the stairs. Damon desperately calls to her. Wait, the house won't let us go, remember? And we can't leave these children to suffer.
We?
Aru's voice echoes in the room. Fine, I can't let them suffer. Please, do this for me. Damon gives puppy-like eyes and puts his hand out towards the orc. She gives a reluctant growl and turns to face him.
This better be worth it, and there better be more than ghosts. Ghosts don't bleed.
She grumbles and pulls out her unfavourably clean great axe.
Not a speck on it.
Damon sighs and his eyes wander over the band of misfits, knowing full well in order to survive, the mighty orc is probably the only one who could handle a real fight. In the middle of his pondering, he sees a flash of green as Aru suddenly barrels towards Blossom, axe ready to slam against the wall. There is a modest click, and the stone shifts effortlessly to one side. Aru, now at full speed, carries on through into the hallway. She halts in her tracks and turns to glare at Blossom, whose eyes beam and boastfully shrugs. Blossom good at doors. Blossom picks up the journal which brought them into the memory and slips it inside his cloak. A stale breeze brushes against Damon's legs as he stares into the dark corridor. He can hear a faint echo of chanting in the distance. He exhales to ready himself and steps into the narrow corridor, while gesturing for the party to follow. The masked wonder turns his head around, attempting to pinpoint the direction the chanting is coming from. People sing, this way! He points down the corridor leading into darkness. I don't think we should go towards the creepy chanting just yet. I bet this place has a lot of secret trinkets. Ains points in the opposite direction down the cramped walkway. Damon flashes his eyes between the two before nodding at Ains, and then takes the lead down the passage. He soon finds a slim doorway with a plaque over the threshold stating, Walter Durst. Damon leans into the room, a small crypt with a single stone sarcophagus, decorated with carvings of twisted vines. Aru glances up at the name.
Hey, that's the guy on Gustav's will. He'll get all of his stuff.
She pauses for a moment in realization.
Well, not anymore, I suppose.
Aru smiles at the cruel irony. Walter? Isn't that Gustav's illegal baby with the nursemaid? Donnie looks towards Damon to confirm. Illegitimate. And yes. Damon grunts whilst lifting the lid of the stone coffin, wanting to assure himself the bones are undisturbed. Blossom feels the walls and compares them to the ones lining the corridor. While still fairly old, the walls within the crypt seem to have been constructed more recently. Nobody room, Blossom remarks curiously. It's empty. Damon stares down at the small sarcophagus. Who steals baby bones? Ains groans in disapproval. They barely get you 10 gold in most places. Lucian gives an interrupting cough and shifts his eyes away from the group. Let's not waste time with worthless, vacant graves. He excuses himself and carries on through the dank passage where another doorway emerges, this one with a windmill carved into the threshold. A few stone steps leading downward. Lucian can see a wooden table at the bottom, layered with dust and abandoned dinnerware. The room opens up into a large space filled with stone shelves containing evenly spaced brass urns, most of which have intricate designs of flowers, vines, or trees imprinted into the metal. In one corner there are several hay-filled sacks on the floor. Someone is living here. Damon grimaces at the thought of making a home within a tomb. Maybe it's these chanting fellows. Blossom notices the table and frantically searches each item until finally finds a single rusty spoon and gleefully puts it into his cloak. Ains reads the engravings on some of the urns. The majority have the surname of Durst. Ah, the old family crypt. It's smart to have it under the S, so no one can steal your stuff. He opens a few of the urns, however finds nothing but ash. He continues on to investigate the hay sack beds. Someone was living here, but not in a long while. He gently kicks at them and the seams break open easily. From within, a rat scurries across the room and flees into darkness. Donnie discovers another set of small stairs leading to a lower room. He hums a tune as he waddles downwards. We should put a leash on you. Ains chases after him. This place is dangerous. Stay close and stay quiet. There's nothing here but dead guys. Donnie pedantically reassures him. Exactly! Ains sighs and rests his hand on the hilt of his rapier as he slowly moves around the new space. He finds yet more hay beds, but this time they seem to be in much better condition, and placed aloft on wooden platforms. Within the centre of the room is a well, with a rope leading into its depths. A mix of curiosity and greed gets the better of him. He pulls on the rope, lifting something reasonably weighted from the darkness below. At the end of the rope is a bucket. As soon as he brings it to the surface, he finds a skull inside, which screams at him before softly disappearing. He yelps and jumps back. The bucket slams against the wall of the well. Grey, murky water sprays across the floor. Ains stares towards Donnie to judge his reaction. Donnie tilts his head. Whoa, you alright? It's just your reflection, dude. Ains grumbles and gets back onto his feet. The turtle lifts an old dust-coated blanket in one of the corners to reveal a small wooden chest underneath. He purrs, clapping his claws and gently stomping his feet with excitement. Inside is a black leather eye patch with a beautiful orange gem attached to it. He tries it on and giggles to himself. Look, I'm a pirate. Donnie smiles and dances a jig. Army matey. Hey, that's offensive. Pirates are high-ranking thieves. Show some bloody respect. Donnie rolls his visible eye and puts the patch into his shell. Hidden among a pile of broken wooden planks, Ains finds another chest, which contains a pouch made from pale skin with soft blonde hair still attached. He gives it a shake and hears the familiar sound of coins. Handling the purse with the end of his nails, he puts it into his cloak. The things I do for money, he winces, and notices something else twinkling at the bottom of the chest. He picks it up just as the others enter the room. Blossom peers over Ain's shoulder. Oh, Sonny, as he holds up the mirror made of amber. Damon promptly finds a silvered shortsword leaning against one of the bedposts and gives it a few test swings. Beautiful and deadly, like a woman, he chuckles to himself. Ains becomes unable to avert his gaze from the mirror. He sees his own reflection smile back at him and begins to feel himself being pulled inside. In the blink of an eye, he is standing within a familiar marketplace that he recognizes from his childhood. Suddenly, the entire market is ablaze with scorching flames. A figure appears from within the smoke, chained to a post. A woman with red flowing hair, screaming in agony as the fire licks at her skin.
You will carry my burden!
She shouts over the roar of the flames.
You will be my champion!
Champion for what? Ains squawks in fearful surprise.
I was sentenced to death for a crime which I did not commit! The flames consumed my flesh and charred my bones. But my soul rages like a burning inferno. I protect the innocent of this land, those who suffer at the hand of the corrupt. And you shall do the same. Do you accept my gift? Do you take my power?
The woman's flesh begins to turn black and crack from the heat. Her skin peels off of her bones and she continues to scream out in pain. I accept! I accept! He tugs on the chain that binds her and feels the scorching metal melt his skin as the flames wrap themselves around him, when suddenly finds himself back where he was, kneeling in front of a wooden chest. When he regains his senses, he looks down at his hand. The flesh is charred, with embers glistening within. Blossom, who was standing behind Ains, smiles and gently taps him on the shoulder to stop him from daydreaming. Hello, Jarman, you okay? He turns his attention to Ains' hand, and panic builds within him. Ah, fire! Blossom rushes towards the well and dunks the bucket into the murky water before haphazardly throwing it over Ains. The drow screams in excruciating pain, clutching his wrist as the water sizzles and evaporates, steam billowing from his hand, but remaining lit. Please stop! He manages to squeeze out a few words, reaching out with the other hand to halt Blossom, who is holding a new bucket of water. Oopsie-daisy! Blossom drops the bucket onto the floor and quickly pushes it away with his foot. Damon, noticing the commotion, rushes over. What happened now? He states firmly, unsurprised at further antics of the group. He leans down to look at Ains' hand. What do we have here? This looks like some kind of curse. Damon speculates to himself out loud. I've no idea, mate, but I think I'm supposed to have it. There was this witch, right? I think she needs my help. Ains sits on the floor, cradling his smouldering fingers. Damon stares at Ains with great concern for a moment before turning to the rest of the group. I think we should take a break. I have some notes to make. He pulls out his sketchbook and sits on one of the beds, writing and mumbling to himself. Blossom sits down on the floor, feeling a tad guilty. Sorry, Jarman. Ains groans in retort. Blossom takes a moment to think on all that has happened. He hopes the children are in a safe place, and that since the grave was empty, perhaps the brother could still be alive. Suddenly, his eyes glow an intense blue, and a booming voice fills his mind.
Walter is dead!
The short orc lifts his arms up in dismay. Oh no! The others briefly stop what they're doing. They lock eyes on Blossom, before rolling them and returning to their previous activities.
I'll stand guard. You get some rest.
Aru glares down at Ains and then to his hand.
Maybe not in the bed.
The party lays down to sleep. A few hours into her watch, Aru becomes aware that the chanting is getting louder. She readies her axe by the doorway as she hears movement in the other room. The sound gradually becomes more distinct, with the scraping of feet along stone. She swiftly moves over to Ains and shakes him awake.
Hey, something's coming.
She whispers. Ains comes out of his trance and silently makes his way toward the door, listening intently. He can hear groaning as the smell of decay pours into the room. He readies his rapier and moves his eyes to silently direct Aru towards Damon. The detective, currently meditating, receives a thump on the back.
We got company.
She softly barks. Without hesitation, Damon stands and tiptoes behind the well to prepare his crossbow. Aru makes her way in front of the doorway just in time to see a grey-skinned, pale-eyed ghoul shambling into the room, chewing on an arm bone.
Hey, handsome. Come and get it.
calls Aru as her gaze locks on the foul creature and lures it further into the room. Damon pokes his head over the well and fires a bolt into its eye. The ghoul, seemingly unfazed, lunges towards Aru. Now half blind, it doesn't see Ains hiding beside the doorway, who slices off its head in a single swing, and its body slams to the ground. Damon and Ains give each other a sly smile for their teamwork, and Aru grumbles.
Hey, that was my kill.
Fine, I'll take watch and you can have the next one. Aru lays down on one of the beds. It creaks under her immense weight as she quickly falls asleep. Damon returns to his claimed bed and continues his meditation. A short while into his watch, Ains sighs and thoughtlessly rests his chin against his charred hand, and with the strong smell of burning hair, he quickly realizes that his mustache has caught fire.
Ooh!
And pats it out with his unburnt hand. He stares into the embers on his palm. Well, that's interesting. He then rests his head against his non-fiery hand, and boredom continues to sink in. He can hear Blossom snoring loudly across the room, occasionally talking in his sleep in between snorts. Oh, Spawn. Ains growls, recalling the bucket incident earlier, and decides to get some petty vengeance. A cunning smile appears on his face as he sneaks over to the end of Blossom's bed. Witnessing a pink ball curled up almost cat-like, hugging his spoon staff, Ains attempts to remove the spoon and replace it with a fork. Even within deep sleep, Blossom senses a disturbance and bolts awake.
Oh, what do?
Ains quickly improvises. It's okay. Ooh, you're dreaming. And wiggles his fingers in front of Blossom's mask. Blossom sits still for a moment, glaring intently at Ains with his shining blue eyes.
Oh, okay.
Then falls asleep on the bed, resuming to snore. Ains holds back a laugh as he backs away. He feels a substantial crunch under his foot, then slithering around his ankle. He grits his teeth and looks down, to find hundreds of centipedes crawling all over the floor. He curls his lips to prevent himself from making noise, and slowly removes his foot from the skittering mass. With a controlled exhale, Ains taps Damon on the shoulder, who looks up at him with instant alertness and realizes the entire floor is moving. The half-elf proceeds to stand up on his bed and pulls Ains up with him, taking a moment to think of his next move before he frantically reaches into his coat and pulls out a flask of oil. He sprays it across the floor and attempts to light a torch with shaking hands. Ains stops him. Wait, let me try something. He clicks the fingers of his burnt hand and sends forth a spark of flame, which instantly ignites the oil. The flames then roll across the floor like a tsunami, and the centipedes hiss and squeal as their exoskeletons crack from the heat, leaving only charred insect husks in its wake. Ains smiles proudly at Damon, who stares uncomfortably at his flaming hand. We will have to talk about this later. The party awakened by the intense heat sweeping over the room, only to find the ground littered with chitinous corpses. Donnie looks over at Damon and Ains standing on the bed. Oh, looks like I missed out on all the fun. He huffs, surveying the floor.
Damn it, Ains. That was supposed to be my kill.
Aru produces a pained grin. Blossom pokes a pile of burned centipede with his spoon staff and it crumbles into ash.
At breakfast time?